What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to another Wednesday live edition of the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan, and I will be your host. Today, we're going to take a look at international shipping, both through the international shipping program over on eBay and how to set up international shipping on Etsy. I did have somebody that reached out a couple of weeks ago and asked about how to set that up. So we're going to walk through that in addition to just kind of some general reselling chat, hanging out. I hope everybody's got their cup of coffee with them this morning. And before we get into all of that, let's jump into the chat here and see if anybody's here with me this morning. Lord Jake Ryan, hello again. Welcome. Appreciate you coming out every week. So before we get into kind of the meat and potatoes of the show, I did want to share a couple of other things as well. So I put a poll up over on the community tab on the YouTube page last week about how long have you been reselling? And I was actually a little bit surprised at the results. If you haven't voted in that poll yet, please hop on over there at your leisure and do that. There is a second poll up as well now. But 61% of the people who responded said they had been reselling for more than 5 years, which was a much higher number than I actually anticipated. So just 8% of the respondents so far have been selling for less than a year, 13% 1 to 3 years, and 18% 3 to 5. That's the category that I fall into for another 5 months or so. And August will be kind of the start of my fifth year doing this. Crazy. 5th year anniversary. I went full time in October of 2019 for anybody that's keeping track of that sort of thing. One other thing that I wanted to do. Member alert. I did have a couple of people sign up for memberships this week. So I'd like to welcome Kevin Wallace and Black Cat Flips to the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller podcast membership group. Thank you so much for signing up for that. I very much appreciate everybody that shows up and watches these shows and listens to my various ramblings, but especially those who have over the years given financial support to the show. It is very much appreciated. So with that, let's talk about, we're going to start with eBay's international shipping program. Now, if you've been playing along at home for any length of time, you know I am a big believer in getting your items in as front as many eyeballs as you can, whether that be through cross-listing. I use List Perfectly, shameless plug. There's an affiliate link in the video description below. If you'd like to check that out, you can get a 30% off your first month trial for List Perfectly to cross-post to additional sites. This eBay international shipping program is another way to get your merchandise in front of more people. For me, I can tell you that about 10% of my transactions every month are from the international shipping program. So it is, and when you start adding that stuff up, I'm doing 8 to 12% of my business on Mercari, probably 18 to 20% maybe over on Etsy, add in another 10% in international shipping through eBay, and all of a sudden, about a third of my business is because I'm doing things beyond just listing on eBay. So if you're not familiar with this program, it is essentially eBay handles all of the shipping and all of the customs. There's a couple of testimonials here. What I love about this program is that it's so easy, and that is, I would definitely second that. Hear what sellers have to say. Selling international couldn't be easier. You ship domestically and do not have to worry about the international logistics. Don't do anything extra to access millions more buyers on eligible listings. So not everything is eligible to be shipped overseas. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. eBay is actually going to take over the exclusions lists in this program. You can opt out of that if you don't want to do that, but they're going to start, I believe it's in June, determining which countries you will and will not ship to. If you're not comfortable with that, you can opt out, but that is something they're going to do. But essentially, you ship your item to a logistics hub for eBay. The one I generally ship to is up in the Chicago area, and then they handle all the paperwork from there. Here's how easy it is. You ship domestic. eBay helps you take it international. When you make an international sale, you're only logistically responsible for shipping the items safely to the domestic eBay international shipping hub. Any restrictions, customs paperwork, and international shipping are done on your behalf. There's no charge for any of that. That is built into what they charge the customer, which, to be fair, I have heard from some customers that can be a little bit on the expensive side. But it is, again, it's 10% of my business, so it's not prohibitive, apparently. eBay also handles returns. Your sale is complete when your item arrives at our domestic shipping hub, no matter what. If the buyer opens a return, eBay issues a refund at no cost to you. All returns communications are handled for you. So if there's an international return, you don't have to do anything about it. I've not had any. I did have one item that never was delivered, and the customer filed an item not received, and eBay took care of it. They took care of refunding the customer. There was no obligation on my part to do anything. Essentially, your responsibility is to get it to them safely, and then they take it from there. You can control where your items sell. As I said, they're about to change that. Fine-tune your listings to avoid brand or manufacturer restrictions, regulations, or licensing issues in certain countries. If you have an item that you know is not eligible to be shipped to a particular country or out of the country at all, you can remove that item from the program. There's a video here if you want to take a tour of their hub. When you ship a package with international shipping, you're only responsible for getting it again to their shipping hub. How does it reach the buyer? You can follow the package from the moment it leaves the shipper's hands through the hub and to the buyer and get questions answered along the way. So I'm going to link to this ultimately in the show notes if you want to go back and watch this. But it's a really interesting process. And I've had a couple people say that they felt like it took an inordinately long time to get to them. There's no way to know if that's their local postal service or something with this setup. But it's one of those things. International shipping, especially if you're shipping to less populous, less well-managed countries, can take a while. You're protected. This is where it really gets key. Lost or damaged items. If your item is claimed as lost or damaged during international transit, you won't be at fault. Late or no delivery. Your seller performance standards and service metrics won't be affected by late deliveries or eBay money-back guarantee claims attributed to international shipping. So again, they take the pressure off for that. Neutral or negative feedback. Any negative or neutral feedback from handling during international transit will be removed from your account. Now, this one gets a little sketchy because we'll get into this in a second. I'm going to show you how to opt into this or opt out in a moment. There are some FAQs here at the bottom. How does enrollment and eligibility work? eBay says they continuously evaluate seller performance and enroll sellers where possible. As far as I know, their plan is to enroll everybody, and probably unless you're below standard in this program, you will be enrolled as soon as your account is eligible. You'll be notified via email and messages in eBay about this change to your account. Currently, they're only doing this with U.S. sellers. They do want to expand it to other countries in the future. To see if you're currently enrolled, log in, go to account settings, choose shipping preferences, and see if you're enrolled. So let's just do that here. Let me open up another tab. So you would click here, go to your account settings, go down to shipping preferences, and it should be right here at the top. You'll see eBay International Shipping. They still call it new, even though it's been here for well over a year. It'll show your status, either enrolled or not enrolled. If you're enrolled, there'll be an opt-out button here if you want to get out of the program. If you're not enrolled and you want to get in, there will be an opt-in button that you can click to get signed up. Types of items that you can ship. It's pretty much everything as long as it's under $2,500 and excluding taxes, duties, and delivery fees. It's physically located in the U.S. and it has to be listed on eBay.com, not on any of the international sites. This is a question that comes up a lot. Are items repackaged at the hub? Not usually. You should pack your items ready to go to their final destination. So bear in mind, you should be packing them well anyway. Your responsibility, again, is only to get it to their shipping hub, but they are not likely to repackage it at eBay. So make sure that it's packaged fully and ready to go across the pond or wherever it's got to go, and you think it's packed well enough to get there safely. That's where it can get a little sketchy, because if they're not opening up those packages, they essentially have to take your word for it that it got to them safely. So once it's scanned in up there, I guess you're covered, because they're not looking at these to make sure that they're not broken before they ship them out. Again, what countries? There is a list of supported countries. There's probably a dozen, maybe 15 that they don't currently ship to, and those are automatically excluded. You don't have to do anything there. You can add your own exclusions to that if there are countries that you just don't want to ship to for one reason or another. Here's an interesting one. If I received a verified rights owner complaint, Vero, am I protected through eBay International Shipping? If an item is displayed on eBay International Shipping and there is a Vero, eBay will modify or remove the listing from eBay International Shipping. Negative account consequences won't be applied to the seller's account. Obviously, however, you're going to want to consider whether you want to take that listing down. Anyway, if you're getting a Vero situation. So if you offer additional international shipping services, because you can still ship internationally by yourself if you choose to, you'll need to go to the exclusions section of My eBay and manually remove the countries that you can't import those items to. This will help ensure you only ship to countries allowed and that you don't receive negative actions if you self-ship these products. They have added combination shipping now on international orders. It's been a little hit or miss how well it works. I've had a couple times where it has not worked well, but they are now doing that. Is eBay International Standard Delivery still available? Yes, you can still use that on eligible listings. The option to choose eBay International Standard Delivery will show up to your buyer once they've purchased an item. So if you select regular shipping, international, you can still use that program. However, none of those protections that I've just mentioned apply. You're on your own. You can combine multiple items. That's fine, but returns aren't handled by eBay, so your return policy applies. They say it works well for low-cost items. They define low cost as under $1,000. That's nice. With shipping protections up to only $100. So let me hop back into the chat here and see if there are any questions on that. Doing handmade things for 9 years, doing really reselling slowly for about a year. It takes a while. I can't do handmade. I wish I had that skill that I could do something, but I just cannot. Carl, the lazy reseller. How are you? Thanks for stopping by. Big Dre, been selling on eBay for 17 years casually, but only recently took it serious as a part-time seller. Yeah, I think that's actually happened with a lot of folks. It was a hobby, something you did for fun, a little side money. And through COVID and with the economy being what it is, it's a great opportunity to dive in and make a little side hustle out of it. Or in some cases, like me, just turn it into a full-time one. Carl, the lazy reseller, as a Canadian, I wish we had access to this. As a Canadian, I hate buying sellers who use it. Yes, and I've heard, particularly from buyers in Canada, that the rate through the eBay International Shipping Program to ship things to Canada is very expensive. And I don't know why that is, but that is, I have heard that more than once. Big Dre listed a small batch of books a few days ago, already sold 2 books from the 70s last night. Yep, the old saw holds true. The more you list, the more you'll sell, especially, again, with media items, books, music, movies. It's a numbers game. The more stuff you can get up, the more stuff you're likely to sell. Because if you've got one of only a handful of copies of something and you're priced competitively and you got a good listing, you're likely to sell it, but it can be long tail. So Reader's Digest Cookbook and Discovery of North America. I really like, I think we talked about it last week, kind of the spiral bound cookbooks, the local schools and churches and things like that have done those over the years. I sell those pretty regularly. I can usually pick them up for $1 or less. Sometimes I can get a whole stack of them for a couple of bucks. And you run into those situations where you've got like a grandparent or an aunt or someone that someone knows that had a recipe that was in that book, and they want it. They don't have a copy of it for themselves, and they want that piece, that memory of grandma's cookie recipe or whatever it was, and they'll buy those things. And they're not huge money. They're 10, 12, 15 bucks, but if you're into them for 50 cents or $1, you can do pretty well with those. Moving on over to Etsy. So setting up, if you're using shipping profiles on Etsy, it's really pretty straightforward. And you've got quite a bit of flexibility on where and how you ship. So you go into, once you're on your dashboard, you go down here to settings, and click on shipping settings, and it will go to this screen. And if you have shipping profiles already set up, you can just go in and edit those. So I'm going to look at my media one here. So if you're setting a new one up, this is kind of the same process. You can give it a name. It'll ask for your origin zip code, what your processing time is. I use 1 business day. My order processing schedule is currently set to Monday through Friday. I don't have Saturdays turned on at Etsy, even though I usually will ship on Saturday mornings. Here's where you can set up your international shipping, where I'll ship. You can select United States and worldwide, which they say is the default. So unless you at some point have turned off international shipping, it should be on by default. But if you want to edit, click that button, and you'll see right at the top is a checkbox for all countries, at which point that shipping profile will now be set up to ship anywhere in the world. If there are particular countries or particular regions that you don't want to ship to, they give you this checklist by region. If you hit the drop down, you can then also select by country, countries you want to or do not want to ship to. I will ship anywhere. Somebody's got money, I'm going to ship to them. I don't have any issue with it. Sometimes, as I've talked about here, the offsite ad fee, particularly if you're shipping to the Asian or kind of the sub-Asian region, can get really expensive because shipping can be 40, 50, 60 bucks, and they're getting 15% of that. So that can get a little expensive. But again, I prefer to get my items in front of as many eyeballs as I can. International shipping is not nearly as good for me on Etsy as it is on eBay. It might be a couple of months as opposed to 10% of my business, but I still leave it on. As you scroll further down, you can then select your shipping services. So here you got a list of all of the domestic and international shipping services that you would want to select. Priority Mail Express, Priority Mail, First Class Mail, which is now Ground Advantage. This is my media mail specific category, so I don't have that checked here. USPS Priority Mail International, USPS Priority Mail Express International, which would be probably crazy expensive. Standard International, which is their inexpensive way to send small, lightweight packages. They actually handle the shipping. So this works kind of like the international shipping program at eBay. You will ship it to their freight forwarder, and then they will take care of all the customs paperwork and send it on internationally to wherever it's going to go. I don't know if they repackage the items. My impression is that they do not, that they just apply the appropriate labels and customs forms with the VAT information and all the rest of that, and then forward the things on. But this is a quick and easy way to do it. One of the other differences is on eBay's international shipping, you will receive funds from eBay only for whatever you charged for your domestic shipping, not for the international portion of it. With Etsy, whatever the customer paid for the total shipping is going to be deposited into your Etsy account, and then you will pay for shipping, whether it's through this program or through regular international shipping that you do on your own. My experience has been that you're not paying any extra. So let's say the shipping is $30 international through this program. The label that you print to ship it to their shipping center is free. So you're not paying to ship it domestically, but you're not going to make any money on their shipping. That I can promise you. You can also select USPS Media Mail. They do still have Parcel Select Ground in here, though that particular service actually it no longer exists. Then you can select whether you want to do free, domestic, or international shipping. Again, you can add a handling fee if you'd like to do that. Save the profile, and that profile is set. And any listing, like in this case, I've got 1,905 listings under this profile. If I change this, all 1,905 will be updated to whatever changes that I made. So just keep that in mind. I have another one here just called Ground Advantage. I don't have a ton of stuff there, but let's just look at this one. Same kind of thing. Give it a name. It asks for your zip code. What's your handling time? Again, United States and worldwide. And we can look at this. All the countries are still selected. And then again, select your individual package types. If you want to do Ground Advantage, they're still listing it in here as First Class Mail, but that's what you would want to select for Ground Advantage. I wish they would fix that. Clarity is good. I like clarity, and that's a little vague. And again, you can select the standard international program to ship internationally. So pretty slick. Works very well for the most part on both platforms. I know the eBay international shipping program had an issue early on where it seemed like it was excluding all the countries for some reason. I have not heard that complaint recently. I had made a change in my listings to get it to work. I have not undone that change to see if it changes anything. I'm going to leave well enough alone because it's working and stuff is moving and I'm selling stuff overseas. So I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to hop back over here into the chat real quick. Carl, the lazy reseller. Sometimes things with USPS will cross the border and not be charged import taxes. That's why Canadians prefer USPS. That's probably why I get that question. Miss Lachey, welcome. Hi, Ryan and chat. I did turn off the shipping a while back. Yeah, for international shipping. Yeah, so that's if you're on Etsy, and that's how you would go in and turn it back on. Just go into where that profile is and update it. Of course, you have to do that for every shipping profile that you have set up. That I didn't find a way to globally apply it to all shipping profiles. So if you've got a whole bunch of them, you're going to have to do it however many times for however many profiles you've got. I've only got 4 or 5, so it's not a big deal if I choose to edit them. But yeah, you can do that and get it set up fairly quickly. I do want to show you also how you would do it within just creating a single listing. Let's see if I can get in here. You want to add a listing. I did switch over. I talked about this, I think, last week to the new listing form, which they're getting some complaints. They are still saying that this is going to go live and they're going to retire the old one in June, but they have said now that they are going to take some of the user feedback they got since they made that announcement last week and tweak this a little bit. So be on the lookout for more changes to this listing form. You always start off with this kind of core thing. In my case, I'm always shipping stuff that's a finished product and another company made it. And of course, it's all vintage stuff. Once you continue, then you're on your main screen here. If you go down to shipping, you can add in the size and the weight here. And if you don't have a shipping profile that you want to use, you can just create a new one from scratch. And it will walk you through the process. You can calculated shipping is what they recommend. Again, you would put in your zip code, select your processing time, and then here, again, you would select how you want to do it. The default is United States and worldwide, and I can go in and change, just delete all countries. I only want to send this to Australia and New Zealand and Oceania. That's 27 countries, and there's the list. So that's how you would get there. You can either hit the link at the top and go right down to it immediately, or you can just, as you scroll through and do your listing, eventually you're going to come down to that shipping, and you can just set up a new profile. I like shipping profiles. I talked about it, was it 2 weeks ago? I use business profiles, business policies over on eBay, and they make making those global changes so much easier because it applies to every listing that's in that category. So that can be super helpful. So that, my friends, is that. Let me know if you have any questions on any of that. Tom, welcome. Sorry, no problem. You get 1 demerit for being late. As I said in the pinned comment, if you have anything you would like to discuss while we're here today or a topic for a future episode, let me know in the chat so we can do that. Be happy to help with anything I feel at least qualified to talk about. There are some things that I would probably struggle to do because I don't use all of the programs that these sites offer, but I'd be happy to help with anything I can. I did have somebody that asked about, what was it? Where's my list here? Book grading. So last week we did a kind of book terminology, and it was really specific about parts of books rather than condition grading. So there will be a future episode of this live coming up sometime in the next couple of weeks where we'll revisit kind of book terminology, but we'll talk about grading and some of that kind of stuff rather than the physical makeup of a book. So you can be on the lookout for that. I'm also considering trying to line up maybe some interviews for this Wednesday live. So it's not just me rambling and answering questions through the chat all the time. So if you or someone you know might be interested in being on the show some Wednesday, leave a message in the chat, or you can email me at galaxycds@gmail.com, or of course you can DM me over at Instagram at GalaxyCDsRocks. Did you see the Tucker Carlson episode on the dark side of Amazon? I did not. If you'd like to share some high points in the chat, Amazon clearly has. I think it was last week or maybe in the Monday episode where I was talking about Amazon obviously ticks off a lot of boxes in terms of creating shareholder value, creating a really good customer experience, but they're not the most seller-centric. Between the fees and the restrictions and the gating, it's almost impossible to get into Amazon now as a seller. If you sell like media DVDs or whatever, you got to jump through all kinds of hoops to get ungated to sell. It's really amazing, especially considering that whatever it is, 60% of their sales is generated by third-party sellers. You would think they would treat them better, but that does not seem to be the case. TRB Collectibles, I was thinking, you know how eBay allows 24 photos if they offered 10-minute HD video option to describe the product with sound. Would you abandon photos? I would not abandon photos. I'm not, probably for like I just listed a book from 1943 this morning. It's a first edition, second printing of a book that's very, very difficult to find. The first edition, first printings are selling for about $300. A book like that, would I take a video of an item like that? I absolutely would. If I was able to do that, and eBay has said that that's something that they're working on. I don't know about 10 minutes, but I would absolutely take a 60-second video to highlight and showcase the book. But I don't think I would do that in place of photos. You can let us know in the chat what your opinion is of that. But I don't think I would replace photos with video. Etsy does allow for short videos on their listings, but they only allow, I think, 10 pictures, which is problematic, especially on an older book. You know, that book that I just mentioned, I think I did almost 20 photos of it because there were some issues with the book. And you also want to show, as I talked about last week, you know, the front, the spine, the back, an assortment of pages, the copyright page, the title page, and so on. When you're limited to 10 photos, that's really not enough for an item like that. Maybe for handcrafted items where there's only so many angles of something that you could get, it makes sense, but I really wish they would expand at least to 12, 2 more photos, just 2. Etsy, if you're listening, give me 2 more photos. That would be incredibly helpful. What stood out to me is if you list the same item on Amazon, but list it cheaper on eBay, Amazon will take away the buy button on that item. Yes, part of their terms of service, as I understand it, is that you cannot offer an item for less, even on your own website. If you have like a Shopify or your own website and you're selling items, you can't sell it for less, even though you know you're not going to have to pay all those extra fees to Amazon, or they will essentially not allow you to sell the item over there, whether they delete it or just remove the buy button, however they go about doing it. It's another of the reasons that I have elected at this point not to sell on Amazon, even though I know I should. I'm probably costing myself thousands of dollars a year in sales. I'm not willing to jump through the hoops to do that over there. So, but yeah, I've seen that, and I know a lot of sellers who rightly decide to list at other places with lower fees rather than being able to pass that savings along to the customer. They got to charge the same exact price, which is one of the reasons that Amazon is consistently under investigation for monopolistic practices. You can let me know what you think about that as well. They're the 800-pound gorilla in the room, absolutely, in this market. Although, to be fair, I talked about, I have a second survey up, and that survey actually is, what do you consider your primary source for reselling? And only 8% of the people so far, and this has only been up 2 days, I think, have said Amazon. The overwhelming majority of you so far that have responded to that survey, eBay is your primary source. Mercari, sadly, no one considers to be their primary source. Um, I wish it could be my primary source, especially with the no fee thing going on. Man, if I could sell, if my situation was reversed and I was selling, 10% of my stuff on eBay and 80% of my stuff on Mercari, man, I'd be rolling in it. I don't know how you get there. Again, in my category, books and books in particular just don't seem to do well. Media does fairly well over there. I've done well with CDs and Blu-rays, but books, not so much. It's a tough slog over there. TRB Collectibles, I've been considering 1-day shipping, currently offer 3 days handling to get that 10% off final value fees. Do you offer 1 day to take advantage of that? Yes, I do. I do everything eBay asks to be a top rated seller plus and get that 10% off fees. So I do free 30-day returns, the 1 business day handling. I think you can even offer same day, but I don't do that. 1 business day seems more than fair. And I'm full-time. This is all I do, so I can ship every day. I do have Saturdays shipping turned on eBay just to give it that extra little bit of boost. But I do that. Not everybody is in a position to do that. Not everybody really does enough volume to justify doing that. If you're only getting a couple of orders a day, do you really want to be running to the post office every single day? I rarely have less than 10 or 12 of it. Today was one of the lightest mornings I've had, and I took 9 packages across 3 platforms. I think it was 7 on eBay, 1 on Mercari, and 1 on Etsy today. Kaylee Debs, hello, first time catching you live. Thanks. I appreciate you coming out. Welcome. Hello. Thank you. Big Dre, I was going to list books and DVDs on Amazon, but now that I know that, maybe they're just DVDs and Blu-ray. Yeah, if you're ungated in those categories, man, go for it. I don't know how strong Amazon really is for the type of books I sell. Most of the people I see selling books on Amazon are doing FBA. So it's more recent books that have barcodes that they can scan and get the items listed. They send them in to Amazon to be shipped. 90% of the stuff I do is old enough there's no barcodes. So it would be difficult to do on FBA. I could probably do it merchant fulfilled, but again, they're not list perfectly. Who I use for my cross listing currently does not have Amazon. I'm sure that's an Amazon thing, not a list perfectly thing. If I had the ability to do that, would I consider Amazon more strongly? Yeah, I probably would. I'm still not convinced I would do it, but I would absolutely think about it if the ease of adding that to my resources was better. I would do that. Have you ever run into concerns missing the shipping time? I have not. The only time I did have a concern. So here's a story. Last September, I was out throwing football with my boys, and we had just bought this brand new kid junior size football, $50, Nike, real nice football. And we're out throwing it, and one of the kids overthrows me, and I see the ball rolling directly towards the storm sewer, which is big enough that this ball would have rolled into it and been gone forever. I'm 58 years old, so deciding to go from a standing start to a dead sprint was probably not the best plan I've ever had, but that's what I did to try to stop the football from going in the sewer. I was successful at stopping the football, but I tore my calf muscle, and I literally could barely walk for a week. It was a real struggle to get up and down stairs, and those of you who've been around a while know that my warehouse space is on the 3rd floor of a warehouse, and conveniently the freight elevator was broken at the time. So I had to trudge up and down 3 flights of steps to process orders. I was very concerned that I might miss some delivery dates because I just physically was not going to be able to get up and down. I battled and struggled and crawled and managed to get it done. But that's the closest I've come to missing a delivery date. Probably the only other one would have been uh, last spring, probably about this time last spring, the roof blew off the warehouse. You may remember that if you're a long time listener or viewer. And I had a bunch of books that got damaged. And I was concerned about number one, I had to move everything out of my space into the hallway, which was still under a working roof to keep it protected. So it was very disorganized. It was a little hard to find stuff at that point. And I was concerned about stuff that may have gotten wet or damaged that I would not be able to get fixed in time. So that one was a little bit messy. But I've never, knock wood, had an instance where I missed my 1 day handling time. So, but thanks for the question. That does put you under a lot of pressure. And I know a lot of sellers that don't do it. And again, depending on your business model, how much volume you're doing on a regular basis, it may or may not make sense. That 10% savings versus the amount of additional pressure you put yourself under, if you're not doing a fairly high volume of transactions, definitely becomes something you would want to consider long and hard before you put yourself under the gun on a one business day handling. I think that's the last. Yes. So if anybody else has anything else, and I'm still fishing for suggestions for future episodes. So if you're here and you have thoughts about something else you would like us to discuss on this Wednesday live, or again, if you're interested in participating in one as a guest, live on air, that shows how old I am, on stream, you can let me know about that as well. I don't think I have anything else. There's not been a ton of reselling news. Nothing has really broken here recently. I guess I would talk about one other topic that has come up. I've had the channel has grown enough now that I'm starting to have companies kind of fish around for potential sponsorship opportunities. So I have given that some thought about if and whether and when and how I would like to do maybe a sponsored episode or a sponsored show with whomever might be interested in participating in that. So I created a kind of a sponsorship ethics statement, which is just kind of my thoughts on what I would and would not be interested in doing and what my expectations would be. The key one for me, of course, being full editorial control over my show. So if someone wanted to, they wanted to send me a printer to check out, I would want my editorial freedom to say, this printer is not ready for prime time in the event that it wasn't. So that's kind of some things I've been thinking about. There is a link in the video description below where you can go and look at that if you have any interest in that. I'm not convinced that that's yet something that I want to do. I'd much prefer viewer and listener support, but it would be tempting at some point to consider sponsorship in the right circumstances with the right partners. So you can let me know what you think of that, and go check that out if you would be interested. Have you considered guest starring on the Profit Playbook podcast? Nurse Flipper, Pure Hustle to get more eyes on your show now that you're doing live shows. I have not reached out to anybody recently. I have been on a few other shows over the years. I was on Reseller Niche podcast way back in the day. I did a show with Katie Reeds 6 or 8 weeks ago. I'm not sure my reach is enough. Maybe for somebody like Nurse Flipper, I mean, she's got a huge channel that she would do me a lot more good than I would do her. The Pure Hustle podcast guys actually would be fun to talk to, and I have thought about reaching out to them, maybe to do like a show swap where they would appear here and I would appear there for something. So if those guys are watching, hey, my name's Ryan. Let me know if you'd be interested in doing a show swap over there. But yeah, those guys are kind of in the same, I feel like the same category I am. It's a podcast first kind of thing. So that would be interesting. I have thought about them. The Profit Playbook one, I'm not familiar with, so I'll have to look into that. We're at almost 45 minutes. Does anybody have anything else they would like to discuss today? Any good sales? Any good estate sales? Any good finds? Any good scores? I was out. If you follow me over on Instagram, I put up a post late last week. I was at a sale and I was making my stack of books, and someone came up to me and said, I think I mentioned this in the Monday episode, nobody buys books anymore. The book that I mentioned earlier in this show that I just listed for $149.99 is a book I picked up at that sale. There are sales showing for that book. And yeah, I paid $2 for it at an estate sale. So there is still opportunity out there if you want to do books and media. Absolutely, there's still a way to make money doing that. I saw somebody post something earlier about, again, back to the point of the more you list, the more you sell. Whatever you're trying to accomplish, the quickest way to get there is to get as many listings up as you can. And again, to try to get them in front of as many eyeballs as you can. I saw someone the other day that was talking about maybe stopping some of their cross listing. They're not using a third-party service, so they're doing it all manually, which is what I did initially. And let's just use my example of Mercari, which is sometimes as little as 8% of my transaction volume. If I was listing 100 items a week or more manually to Mercari, my time would probably be much better spent listing an additional 20 or 30 items to eBay directly. But because I use List Perfectly, which does most of the heavy lifting for me, I can do 10 listings on Mercari in 5 minutes probably, because they've transferred all the pictures, they've transferred most of the information. I've got to click a couple of boxes, update my price, and boom, I'm good to go. I'm not sure I could justify cross-listing over there right now with the volume I'm doing if I had to do it manually. So keep that in mind as well. What goals do you have for your business this year or next year? I don't have like a particular financial goal. I set weekly goals for things that I can control. So how many times I want to go sourcing, how many items I want to list a day, a week, the kind of a dollar volume that I want to list, because those are things that are measurable for me. I can't control when someone is going to be looking for a particular item. I can't control when sales are going to be good or sales are not going to be good. I can't really control summer slowdown or holiday weekends or bad weather. There's just so much of that stuff to set like an annual sales goal is very difficult to do. But what I can do is set goals that are kind of my behavior. Am I going to list 100 items this week? Because those will then lead to ultimately positive results on the other end, on sales and on all the rest of that. So that is more what I try to do on a weekly, monthly, daily basis, is manage my activity and set goals for my activity level, rather than like a broad, I want to do $250,000 this year, because it's hard to manage to that goal because there's so much of it that's out of your control. If you can figure out how to list enough stuff that you think you can get to that number, then that would be more the goal kind of that I would set. The other thing I'd like to do is continue to grow this show, this podcast, this YouTube, whatever, to reach more people. Again, the feedback I get from you who are here and are watching and are listening is universally very positive, and I'm very thankful for that. Most of you seem to really get some benefit out of my ramblings, which is what this is all about anyway. But I would like to figure out how to get it to reach more people. And I'm not really good at the marketing thing, at least with this piece of it. Big Dre, have you considered getting voice actors or friends that could read the letters you do, both male and female voices? That would be interesting. I have not. I don't actually know anybody that does that. Yeah, he's talking about the messages from the past podcast where I'm reading old yearbooks and old postcards. That show has not really gotten a lot of traction just yet. They're fun to make. It's really taught me some additional editing skills, putting those things together. I like doing the voiceover, but yeah, a lot of cases where the postcard was written by a woman, where it might be beneficial to have a female voice do that. So that is something I will think about. If I could find somebody who would do it for the same rate that I'm making, which is nothing, I would consider it. Always go to you in terms of reselling news. Thank you, TRB Collectibles. I try to stay on top of it. I do miss things because I'm not, like, for instance, on Etsy. I'm not an artisan. I don't do kind of the handcrafted. I don't make things. So there are things that happen in that world that I am not super familiar with. There are some glitches. I'm not super active on their message boards, so I'm following the news, kind of broad, like 40,000 foot overview. But there are some kind of day-to-day things that go on over there that I know I miss. But I am actually going to try to be a little more diligent about that as well. Also love the reselling news segments. I appreciate it. Thank you, Annette. It's good to see you. Yeah, I try to give people at least a broad, fairly objective. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was like, so many of the channels that you go on, they're like, eBay sucks. Let's burn it to the ground. But I try to give you a little more objective view of what's going on. I'm not above my editorial comment. I'm not here to like shill for the brand. But I do try to be a little balanced and just bring you the information, give you my take on it, and then let you decide what you think of whatever's going on there. I am always interested when eBay makes changes, eBay in particular, because they seem to struggle the most when they do make a change with how it ends up working out, at least initially. And I don't know how much of that is they're writing over top of old code. I don't know when they did like a major upgrade of their total infrastructure, but they seem to be the one in particular that when they roll out a new program, e-commerce bites, for instance, is full of people posting where they're having an issue with this thing or that. So I always find that really interesting. Have you thought about cross-posting your YouTube episodes? Which and to where, Tom? What are you referring to? The Monday and Friday shows both currently also get posted to podcast platforms. So those are available anywhere you would listen to podcasts. Apple Podcasts used to be Google Podcasts, but they just shut that down. All of those kind of places. Those shows actually go. This show currently I am not, because there's a little more visual component with this where I'm showing you in a tutorial where to click, where to look for something. And that I don't think necessarily translates super well to an audio podcast. But Twitch, interesting. No, I have not thought about Twitch. I'm not on Twitch. Is there content on there that is not gaming? Because my 58-year-old man perspective on Twitch is that it's primarily for gaming. I'm a mod for Flippin' Ain't Easy. He has his wife go live on YouTube at 3 p.m. Pacific time. He's also part of the Profit Playbook podcast. It would be great for you to be part of that chat. Yeah, have them reach out to me. I'll try to find them online and send them a note as well to see if maybe we could work something out. I appreciate that. I'm always looking for like-minded people to collaborate with. There are obviously within the reselling space, there's all different kinds of content, and it's all interesting and it's all good, but not everybody is trying to do the same thing. For me to talk to someone who's stock in trade essentially is to just show like visiting estate sales. I don't know necessarily how useful that would be. It's very entertaining video. It's great on YouTube, but I don't know how much we have to talk about if they're not. Some of them are not like deep into the reselling. They're more YouTube people, if that makes sense. Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific. When would that be here? 6 o'clock in the evening on Friday. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. It is, but I have seen other categories. Yeah, I'll have to look into it. I don't know how difficult it is to set up. I did actually, this is not related to the show, but again, related to finding other opportunities to sell. I've not been convinced that Whatnot is something that I want to do, but I've got several hundred science fiction paperbacks that are not worth listing individually. So I've been thinking about doing maybe some limited stuff over on Whatnot, just do some live shows with these science fiction books and see if maybe I can get a couple of bucks out of them and move them that way. Let me know if anybody would be interested in seeing that. Yes, and you and I have talked about that in the past, and I got away from doing the interviews and kind of dropped the ball on that. So we'll talk offline about maybe setting up a time where when you know you're not going to be outsourcing, we can get together and do a show. Seeing you posting more on Instagram, I think that's the platform for doing content. Would like to see more reels from you. Maybe repurpose some stuff from YouTube. Yes, I've thought about that. I'm trying to do a few more of those. It's always this balance of how much effort and how much time versus if I spent that time listing another 10 items on eBay. And that's been my dilemma with this show, the podcast in general. It's why I've gone AWOL on a couple of different occasions. I love doing this. I enjoy hanging out with you guys. I enjoy talking. I enjoy the feedback and the comments on the videos and the podcast, and the interaction. And I enjoy this process. And obviously I got 4 microphones and a bunch of gadgets. I love the tech. So all of that is great, but this is not a profit center for me. So sometimes I think about, okay, I want to do a reel and I want to put it on, load it as a short. I did one this past week that I put over on Instagram and I put up as a short, and it's got a handful of views, but it hasn't really done all that well. And I spent 40 minutes putting that together. That's where the battle comes in. Do I spend an extra 3 or 4 hours a week repurposing content to try to drive this thing? At what point does the cart come before the horse kind of thing? So, but I appreciate that. I need to find an editor. Or does anybody use any of those services like, what is it, Opus Script or whatever? There's a bunch of services that claim they can use AI to take your existing content and repurpose it into 8 or 10 shorts or reels. When I read the comments on Facebook on some of those, the feedback is not that great. That doesn't do a really good job of selecting really useful clips or segments. But if anybody is using any of those, let me know. I'd be interested what kind of results you're getting with those. You thought about doing a review of older episodes, and based on your knowledge now, if you would have done something differently. How do you mean done something differently? Like with the show itself or with my business? Because those are kind of separate things. I look back at, as anyone who does YouTube does, I look back at those early episodes and they're pretty cringy. I had not kind of come out of my shell. I'd not really figured out what I wanted to do or how to do it. Like most people, I was trying to do it on the cheap. I had the webcam that came with my computer, and I had a $19 Amazon microphone. So they were, I think the content may have been reasonably interesting, but from a production standpoint, they were pretty bad. But I'm not going to delete any of them. With what you bought and how you sold it. So it took me a while, and I suppose that would be an interesting topic for like just a group discussion on one of these kind of Wednesday lives. What do we know now that we didn't know then that we wish we had, and what would we have done differently? Because I think everybody starts off that way, kind of the same with the YouTube. You don't know what you don't know. And I was watching Dixon's Pickens this morning while I was doing some work, and he was talking about how he had bought a bunch of stuff in the past that are things he would not buy today, but what a great learning curve that was for him. And he learned what brands to look for and what products to look for by making those mistakes. And I think all of us have probably benefited from that. It's probably cost us some money over the years. He admitted it's probably cost him thousands of dollars. But that learning experience is invaluable. And pretty sure we've all done that to a greater or lesser extent. I've looked into AI for editing, and based on how reselling edits work, it came out really weird. Do all the different cuts so the shorts don't make sense. Yeah, yeah. And I found like some of them, it sounds like they don't, even if you use like the automatic chapters with YouTube, they have these weird breaks where it starts kind of in the middle of a segment. So I know AI is like the big buzzword right now, but some of it doesn't really work all that well. Sounds like a great idea. It would be very helpful if there was something like that you could just upload a 35-minute podcast to, and it would dissect it into 10 or 12 clips that you could post twice a day to try to draw traffic. But I don't know that I've found that to be true. Excess baggage. I understand the struggle. I like posting quality content, but lazy reels can do very well. Yeah, I'm sure that's right. Some of my best performing reels are from old video clips tossed in an Instagram Reels template. So there you go. And some of that, so your content is a little different than mine because a lot of your stuff is evergreen, like how to repair a bag or how to clean a bag and that sort of stuff. For those of you that don't know, and Excess Baggage does really, really great content on Instagram on how to repair and fix and clean up old handbags and that sort of stuff. Really, really interesting content. And that's stuff that will be relevant 5 years from now as it is today. A podcast about Etsy making a change in their listing form is really only relevant for a very narrow window of time. So it's a lot more difficult for me to go back to much older content because most of what I do is so timely. I absolutely appreciate your point. And I'm trying to think about how I can do more evergreen content, and hopefully some of these like how-to segments will grow to be that. But even with that, like I did one, what was it, 3 weeks ago, and literally the day after I did it, they changed the form and how it looked. So everything I pointed to was gone. So that's a challenge as well. But yeah, that for me, the timeliness of what I do, it's most of my content, unfortunately, is fairly short-lived. We are essentially at an hour here, which is last week's hour and 22 minutes notwithstanding is where I like to keep these so I don't tie up too much of your time. As always, I absolutely appreciate everybody who comes out and spends a little time watching the live, watching or listening to the regular podcasts. Again, shout out to the 2 new members this week. If you'd like to support the channel, share these videos, like these videos, give me a thumbs up over on YouTube. That's a great way to support the channel. Memberships are available. It's $4.99 a month, which YouTube takes a pretty substantial cut of, but still, that's their business model. Good for them. Like I talk about with these platforms, we could not reach. I've said this before. If you told me that I could have in any given week 800, 1,000, in some cases 4,000 or 5,000 people come to my house and watch me talk for an hour, I would say you were crazy. But in some cases, that's what happens here. And these platforms are the same way. I know it's easy to get discouraged and to complain about some of the stuff that goes wrong. But as I've said repeatedly, there's nothing else that we could do that we could make the kind of money we can make doing reselling if we were trying to do this on our own. If you tried to create your own website and drive the kind of traffic that eBay and Etsy and Mercari and Amazon drive to our stuff, you just literally couldn't do it. You couldn't afford to do it. And if I give them a bit of a break sometimes, that's why, because I know that they absolutely allow us to do what we do, to be non-traditional workforce kind of people. One idea is to take us behind the scenes in your daily reselling biz. Yeah, and I talked about that last week. That I've got some equipment that I bought when I had failure here a few weeks ago, and I'd like to invest in another, not as nice a camera as this one, but another camera in my listing area so that I could go live from there and just do listings and have a chat while we were doing that, so you could kind of see what my process is, and get another view and get kind of a behind the scenes look at it. So I appreciate it. Just don't do that the female voice yourself. Believe it or not, there are a lot of YouTubers that do that on scary story type channels, and it doesn't sound good. Yes, I'm not ever going to try to impersonate a female's voice. Absolutely not. I'll just read it dry, and you can imagine it as you will. TRB collectibles, I would love to see that. Yes, and I've actually got a camera in my wish list over at Amazon, so it's just a question of saving up the pennies now. The daily reselling life, not the female voice. Yeah, right. Nobody wants to hear that, I promise you. Oh, man, that's good stuff. But yeah, that is something that I would like to do. I've thought about doing, it's not directly reseller related, but kind of a studio tour of all this. And because this looks like one thing from that view, but it looks like something completely different from this view. Most of you, I'm sure, have seen other people's YouTube studios, but I thought it might be interesting to kind of do a quick video, just 5-10 minutes, showing what this setup looks like and the equipment that I use and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if anybody would be interested in that or not, but it is something I've thought about doing in the past. So again, thank you so much for everybody that came out today and who comes out on a regular basis to hear this show. With that, my friends, it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.